Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about the ongoing situation with a record rise in young men out of work and education. And we typically call these people NEETs, which are people who are not in education, employment, or training. And so we see here that the number of young men out of work and education is rising at the fastest rate on record, according to the Office for National Statistics. And that should be concerning. If men are not only opting out of the dating pool, but are opting out of having friends, and they're just opting out of society in general, you should be very concerned, very afraid, because at a certain point, the discontent in society is going to lead to people taking action. And that is probably one of the reasons behind the rise of the intelligence community saying that American citizens, there's a growing domestic threat of American citizens, kind of lone wolf type of terrorism. It's because of the fact that society is not working to benefit the vast majority of people within society. And so a large portion of society, a large portion of fighting age men are opting out of it and saying that this society does not represent them, which I'm going to emphasize again, should be very, 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 very concerning for the population as a whole, but people just do not talk about this. I remember back when I was a professor that people have so bought into the notion that women are oppressed that the idea that men have any issues just does not occur to them at all. Like, people were shocked to find out that women make up the majority of college students nowadays. They were shocked to find out that men make up the majority of things like overdose deaths, and that their life expectancy is lower, and that they're opting out of the workforce, and that they're opting out of the dating pool, and that they're opting out of society as a whole. Like, it doesn't occur to them. And quite frankly, to a large extent, there were a number of people who just were not sympathetic. They only really cared about women's issues. And again, I mean, just from a safety and security standpoint, you should be concerned about fighting age men being unhappy with the civilization that they're in, because that's not good. It's not good for the civilization in the long-term sustainability of the civilization. Okay, so next up in this article, an extra 56,000 men aged 16 to 24 were not in education, work, or training in the 3 months to June, the largest quarterly rise since records began in 2001. So that's another 56,000 men who are opting out of just the workplace, opting out of society. This brings the total young men in this group to 237,000 compared to 90,000 women. So something to be concerned about here is these are just the people who are actively looking for work, but who are not currently employed. So those numbers should be concerning to people. It's in the millions who are just opting out of society in general. It comes as a separate figures from the Department of Work for Work and Pensions showed the number of foreign nationals registering for a British national insurance number. Oh, wait, is this? I think this might even be the United Kingdom. Okay. Reached a record high of 1.1 million in the year of June. The surge was overwhelmingly driven by people from outside the European Union, with the most common nationalities being Indian and Nigerian. Okay, so that's interesting that there's this many people officially represented in the United Kingdom. The large uptick in applications comes as the net immigration figures hit a record 606,000 in 2022. So that's the amount of immigration occurring, despite pledges by successive conservative governments to bring down numbers. Okay, so I'm not going to make a comment. I'm not going to comment whatsoever on whether mass immigration is good or not. But what I can tell you here is, if a democracy votes to lower mass migration to their country, and the government is not implementing the will of the people, that is not a democracy. Okay, so you have multiple conservative governments who have been elected to lower mass migration, and now you're having a record amount of mass migration. So the government clearly works for someone, but it is not the people that are voting for them. Okay, so again, very, very concerning. I mean, we have a number of things concerning just in this small 2-minute article alone so far. Meanwhile, figures from the ONS showed that nearly 800,000 people aged 16 to 24 were out of education, employment, and training. So that's that NEET acronym I was talking about, from April to June, equivalent to 11.6%. And again, it's higher in America. This is 0.3% points up from the first 3 months of the year. Wow, that's a pretty steep increase from just one part of the year to another. A rise driven entirely by young men, according to the ONS. So again, should be very concerned that fighting age men are out of the workforce right now and don't like your society. Tony Wilson of the Institute for Employment Studies said the large increase was driven in part by 18 to 20-year-olds who had their education interrupted by COVID. He said it could be that they don't want to stay in education because their experience over the last few years may not have been positive. He added that this group will have lost out on things like career support, workplace placements, and extracurricular activities, leaving them less prepared for getting a job. Okay, so on top of this, men are, quite frankly, when they apply for jobs and internships, they're told that they don't have the correct demographic characteristics to get the jobs and internships. If you are some combination of straight white Christian male, you just do not meet the diversity quotas that these institutions have. And sometimes they'll tell you, just like off the record, for the most part, they just either won't get back to you or they will reject your applications. But I mean, I've been in on some admissions meetings, some hiring meetings, and they flat out will tell you that if they just don't want men in a lot of cases. I know one person who won hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits because he was suing a public college for discriminating against men. Other people at the same college reported discrimination against men. It happens very, very, very frequently in at least some segments of our workforce, such as academia. And so men are just opting out because they realize that they are being discriminated against. Christians are being discriminated against. White people are being discriminated against. Straight people are being discriminated against. I mean, there's so much wrong with Western society right now. It's wild. Similarly, there was also an increase in unemployment among 23 and 24-year-olds whose university experience was disrupted by lockdowns. Okay, so lockdowns have a ton of long-term ramifications that we're only now recognizing. I think it was something like children who were forced to mask up and social distance because they didn't meet certain developmental milestones, like during a pivotal time during their development. They were 15 IQ points behind what they were supposed to be in terms of IQ score at their age. So you're facing mental disability territory when you're down 15 IQ points. I mean, it's not fully mentally disabled, but at that point you're getting really close to that. And that's what's going to happen. There's generations that are coming up who are far less proficient, far less intellectually competent to accomplish things, who are coming through the pipeline now because of the COVID restrictions, COVID measures that have occurred. And that's on top of all the inexplicable amount of heart attacks among young people. So not only are young people dimmer than prior generations, but they're also dying of heart attacks, which pretty much never occurred previous to the COVID pandemic and the vaccination efforts. But we're not going to comment on any of that related to young people dying suddenly. We are not allowed to comment on that on YouTube, and this video is being posted on YouTube. Okay, so moving on, some 467,000 16 to 24-year-olds were classed as economically inactive and outside training and education, while 327,000 were looking for work. Okay, so that's an impressive number for a country like the United Kingdom. The increased coincidence with the sharp rise in poor mental health among young people comes amid a wider uptick in inactivity across the population since the pandemic. Research from the Institute for Fiscal Studies earlier this week showed that more than 1 in 4 16-year-old girls are in contact with the NHS mental health services, nearly twice as many as before COVID. So mental health is declining. People are unhappy. Males, females, young, old, everyone. Western civilization is just not working for anyone anymore. I don't know how else to emphasize it. And I talk about this in pretty much every video, that if you have the means to get out of Western civilization, I would strongly encourage you to get out of Western civilization, because it's not working. There's no way of turning around this train that's heading towards a collision. It's just a horrific situation. So anyways, that's what I'll leave you with, this Telegraph article on the record rise in young men out of work and education. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us an upvote. Please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Rumble. Please leave a comment in the comment box below. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.